Apollo was the Olympian god of prophecy and oracles, music, song and poetry, archery, healing, plague and disease, and the protection of the young. He was depicted as a handsome, beardless youth with long hair and attributes such as wreath and branch of laurel, bow, and quiver of arrows, raven, and lyre. The most famous myths of Apollo: his birth on the island of Delos, the slaying of the serpent Python which guarded the oracular shrine of Delphi, the slaying of the giant Tityos who attempted to carry off the god's mother Leto, the destruction of the Niobites whose mother had offended Leto with her boasts, his music contest with the satyr Marsyas who lost and was flayed alive, his love for the youth Hyacinthus who was killed by a discus throw and transformed into a flower, his love for the nymph Daphne who fled from him and was transformed into a laurel tree, his love for Coronus who was slain by Artemis for her infidelity. The murder of the Cyclopes who had forged the lightning bolt used to destroy his son Asclepius, his service as bondsman to the mortal Amdos, his struggle with Heracles for the Delphic tripod, the Trojan War in which he brought plague to the Greeks and helped Paris slay Achilles. Apollo, one of the great divinities of the Greeks, according to Homer the son of Zeus and Leto. Hesiod states the same and adds that Apollo's sister was Artemis. In some of these local traditions Apollo is mentioned alone, and in others together with his sister Artemis. Apollo is the god who punishes and destroys Zeuos the wicked and overbearing, and as such he is described as the god with bow and arrows, the gift of Hephaestus. The circumstance of Apollo being the destroyer of the wicked was believed by some of the ancients to have given rise to his name Apollo, which they connected with Apollumi, to destroy. Some modern writers, on the other hand, consider the power of averting evil to have been the original and principal feature in his character, say that Apollo from the root palo, signifies the god who drives away evil and is synonymous with Alexikakis, Acesius, Ancestor, Soter, and other names and epithets applied to Apollo. The god of prophecy, Apollo exercised this power in his numerous oracles, and especially in that of Delphi. The source of all his prophetic powers was Zeus himself. Apollodorus states that Apollo received the mantike from Pan, and Apollo is accordingly called the prophet of his father Zeus. The manner in which Apollo came into the possession of the oracle of Delphi Pytho is related differently. Makes Apollo build the walls of Troy by playing on the lyre, as Amphion did the walls of Thebes. Homer says that Apollo reared the swift steeds of Umulius Pherecyades and Pieria, and according to the Homeric hymn to Hermes the herds of the gods fed in Pieria under the care of Apollo. At the command of Zeus, Apollo guarded the cattle of Laomedon in the valleys of Mount Idaho. The epithets kisses and kisses refer to this part in the character of Apollo. These characteristics of Apollo necessarily appear in a peculiar light, if we adopt the view which was almost universal among the later poets, mythographers, and philosophers, and according to which Apollo was identical with Helios or the sun. In Homer and for some centuries after his time Apollo and Helios are perfectly distinct. It has further been said, that if Apollo is regarded as the sun, the powers and attributes which we have enumerated above are easily explained and accounted for, that the surname of Phoebos, the shining or brilliant, which is frequently applied to Apollo in the Homeric poems, points to the sun, and lastly, that the traditions concerning the Hyperboreans and their worship of Apollo bear the strongest marks of their regarding the god in the same light. The Hyperborean, says Diodorus, worship Apollo more zealously than any other people. They are all priests of Apollo. One town in their country is sacred to Apollo, and its inhabitants are for the most part players on the lyre. Muller has rejected most decidedly and justly the hypothesis that Apollo was derived from Egypt, but he rejects at the same time, without very satisfactory reasons, the opinion that Apollo was connected with the worship of nature or any part of it, for, according to him, Apollo is a purely spiritual divinity, and far above all the other gods of Olympus. Muller's view of Apollo, which is at least very ingenious, is briefly this. In the latter country, it was introduced during the emigration of the Ionians, whence the god became the Apollo Patrus of the Athenians. The conquest of Peloponnesus by the Dorians raised Apollo to the rank of the principal divinity in the peninsula. In the religion of the early Romans, there is no trace of the worship of Apollo. Apollo, the national divinity of the Greeks, was of course represented in all the ways which the plastic arts were capable of. The most beautiful and celebrated among the extant representations of Apollo are the Apollo of Belvedere at Rome, which was discovered in 1503 at Nettuno, and the Apollo at Florence. If you'd like to hear more about Greek mythology, then why not subscribe for much more. You've been watching History and Mythology Explained. Let me know what you think in the comments. Why not share with a like-minded friend, and I'll see you on the next one.